Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 1.5 Academy info session. We are so excited to introduce this new product and program that we've been working very hard behind the scenes on. We are really trying to help people level up their consulting skill sets to help them grow their businesses without decoupling to sustainable emissions. So with that, I wanted to go through what we're going to talk to today. So we have a full team of our 4 members here, which I'll let them introduce themselves when they come in. We have welcomes and introductions, the Academy Origins, Cohort 1 that we're hoping for, the consulting training itself, including the curriculum, the applied learning that you'll get, the Academy community, program and schedule, missions, enrollment, and Q&A and closing. So just throughout this whole process, if you have any questions, we have Jacob here on the back end. Definitely ping your questions to the comment side of the LinkedIn Live, and we'll definitely get it. And we'll try to aggregate all the questions at the end, or if speakers are wanting to talk about those questions in the time being, they can. So we're really excited for this. It will be recorded, so don't worry if you have to pop off early, but hopefully you can stay for the whole time. Do interact. The more that we know from you, the better we can create this program, but it's not our first time teaching, and we're very excited to go. So with that, I just wanted to introduce our instructors and facilitators for the 1.5 Academy. You have myself, Matthias, Julia, who are on this call, plus Jack, who's supporting, then Denise, who is on this call as well, with Yeoh and Kathleen supporting us. As you can see, we have like a wealth of experience ourselves, a lot in consulting, academics, to the startup world, the climate tech world, you name it, and things that we're going to interlay within the whole OPF Academy experience. But we'll kind of wait to sort of talk more about ourselves within the process of who we are itself. So the OPF Academy origins. Well, 1.5, we currently know that we're on a warming trajectory of 4 degrees Celsius, where the future of sustainable growth is at severe risk. So if you know about climate change, emissions are basically aggregating into our atmosphere at an alarming rate, meaning it's almost like putting a thick blanket around the world, and with the sun kind of shining through, giving it warmth, it's overheating and causing a lot of problems. Everything from global warming to the impacts on our food and agriculture, buildings and cities, circular economy, all these kind of things based on the way that we consume. And what we need to do is reduce down to a 1.5 pathway, which is the company name that we have in itself, which is our own North Star. And we believe, just from a 1.5 basis, and this is an introduction of ourselves, which will give sense to why 1.5 Academy came out, that the climate crisis can be solved if we get the right people together. We have both project teams, experienced consultants, plus an expert network, basically to act as fractional sustainability expert teams to drive forward solutions on climate. What we work on are expert-led end-to-end services. We also integrate climate technology to decarbonize business models. We also have the finance side on the return on investment and return on impact, and then the training modules, which is part and parcel of what this is about. So just to let you know, once off, this academy is not just about curriculum. We actually do the work itself. And it's because we did this work that we realized that there's literally a gap in knowledge, both from the client side, organizational side, and consulting side, to actually deliver this kind of work faster so that we can all act on climate at the intersection of business and the environment. So what we kind of created was this 1.5 approach, which is what we do day to day with the over 50 projects we've worked on with over 30 different customers and partners, basically to help guide a client or an organization, which can include your organization, which is why we want to teach this, to not only start with learning and committing to climate, measuring and analyzing, planning and executing, investing and reducing, and going beyond net zero so that you can draw down your greenhouse gas emissions at the same time as get benefit from sustainable growth over the long term. So we use this framework for our work and our consulting work itself. And we realize that if we're just able to democratize and make this so much more transparent and open, we can have more entrepreneurs doing this within their organization, but also people who are looking to work on projects can do that a lot easier. And so this is a part and parcel of the training component, and we've already done cohort-based learning. We were actually the ones that developed the content and delivered climate-based fellowship, which is more about environmental sciences and kind of capturing 2 years of Masters of Environmental Management information into like an 8-week course. And we realized that we also need to apply this specifically to the sustainability consulting space, because we are people who are working both at the intersection of business and environment, need also the same kind of training and upskilling to know how to apply climate solutions to our particular organizations. And so our core team, and you could have seen before, these are familiar names, but the expansion of our current team, we actually have over 50 years of business and environmental experience. I myself was trained at the Yale School of Environment and did my master's in environmental management. We also have alumni from Cornell and Oxford. We also have worked a lot with consultancies. A lot of us are, I guess you can call, recovering management consultants who have gone into the environmental space with like a high desire to sort of change how models work so that we can actually get the work done itself. And so it's not just us, but we have gone through this and years and years and years of this. And this is basically accumulation of all our knowledge to help more people enter into this space. And this is our expert network. This is where we gather a lot of the information. So you can imagine that we aggregate expertise from 130 different experts that are growing, where you can actually apply for our expert network if that's something that you're interested in. But we basically aggregate expertise because climate is just so broad and deep. And we aggregate those into our project outcomes and even our training materials to make sure that we're teaching the right things and we're also helping to drive the right solutions. And these are the organizations we're connected with. And this is just a subset of the organizations that we can share. But we ourselves have worked across different sectors from CPG all the way to insurance, other consultancies, nonprofits in the environmental space, all the climate technology software providers out there in terms of measurement, risk, and financial institutions that are funding this. And so basically, all in all, these are things that we're gathering from actual live experiences itself. So what are the Cohort 1 outcomes? So you've seen our OPF Academy page. If you haven't, Jacob can share the link. We really want to be able to give graduates after this 6-week program a shareable credential that you can say, hey, I've gone through sustainable consulting. We know for a fact that sustainability consulting role descriptions themselves are just, they're written in a way where do you actually get this experience? So on the one hand, I studied at Yale and did environmental management, which was great from the sciences side, but had very little kind of practical hands-on experience about how to apply standards like SBTI or SASB or GRI, TCFD, and GHG accounting. Like I didn't have that kind of bridge. And so we're trying to bridge that with also providing curriculum of projects that we've worked on and how to actually do these things, which Julia will expand on, but also to give you hands-on consulting experience in our lab, so you're actually applying it. We're also wanting to network and give you the support that you need to actually guide your sustainability consulting journey, and also to organize more climate meetups. We have our expert network who knows we can cross-pollinate, and to provide access to an inclusive climate community. So we're here for you, and Denise will explain more, but if you're the type of person that is wanting to move into sustainability consulting, this is for you. If you are a management consultant or a different type of consultant or a product manager, entrepreneur wanting to move into the consulting world for sustainability, we're your people. Or if you're even technical in a particular area, we're your people. So hopefully this is kind of resonating with you. And this is not our first time doing it. We had an NPS score of over 75, delivering 2 lots of the climate-based fellowship, which is almost like the core teaching curriculum. We built this track because we wanted to do something specialized for the work that we primarily do on a day-to-day basis. We've been able to help individuals like Thomas and Anshuka get into the climate careers that they really want. And we do have a friendly style, so we're here to actually support. This is not something that we're just creating off a whim. We see the need and we want to be dedicated to the impact journey that you have. And so by the numbers, we currently are expecting to have 85 Academy participants in this first cohort. We also are planning 20 over facilitated sessions, including the education, the labs, the panels, and we already have over 15 expert guest speakers and panelists from Project Drawdown all the way to Yale, and we're just announcing them as we go. So with that, I'll pass it over to Julia to talk more about the curriculum.
Thanks, Neil. And before I get into it, I'll just do a quick introduction on myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Julia. I'm an associate director at OnePointFive. I work on our client projects. I've done a lot of the things that you'll be learning in this curriculum, and I worked with Neil to really build this out to make sure that we're including things that we've been asked to do on a day-to-day basis, things that are being asked for in job descriptions, and things that we know that our customers are looking for. And we have a testimonial here. Just wanted to mention from Jacob, who we taught in the climate-based fellowship, and it's just a testament to how important education is to really jumpstarting a career in climate. Just having foundational knowledge is super helpful. And what we're providing here is not just the foundational science knowledge, but it's more so how to apply in a practical way the skills that you learn and be actually able to execute on consulting jobs. So next, I will get into the overview of our 6-week curriculum, and then I will go through each week to touch on some of the key learning objectives. So the way that we've structured this 6-week curriculum is primarily based on the OPF pathway, and it's generally the direction you would go when working with customers on their sustainability journeys. So essentially, you would begin by learning and committing. This is where you'd be setting your climate strategy, your targets, and your goals. And so we'll be covering that and starting. Then you'll want to measure and analyze. We'll be covering this in 2 aspects. One at the organizational or corporate level, and then also at the product level, which is often overlooked but very important. Then we will move into plan and execute, which is essentially reporting, disclosing on your emissions and your risks, setting KPIs, and measuring metrics as you go. Then we'll move into invest and reduce, which is when we'll be covering climate investment principles, various decarbonization strategies, and how to cost carbon. And then lastly, this is our kind of bonus week, which is where we cover everything that we have to offer on how to be a sustainability consultant. What are the mental models that we use? What are the frameworks that we use? And like, how do we actually succeed on our climate projects? So going into each week, for week 1, as mentioned, we'll be diving into setting your net zero strategies. We'll be talking about external forces that are really driving corporate sustainability this year. We'll be covering the most important and most common reporting and disclosure frameworks. We'll be discussing the different types of corporate sustainability goals out there and which ones mean what they say and which ones might be most suitable for a given organization. And we'll also be talking about how climate justice can be incorporated into different aspects of a corporate sustainability strategy. Next, as we move into organizational sustainability, this is really where we're covering scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions. If you've ever heard anyone talking about greenhouse gas accounting, this is where we're covering what it is, what is it comprised of, and exactly how do you do it. It's a lot easier than it sounds, but we'll be breaking this down. We'll also be talking about what are the different calculation approaches that are best suited for a given company, depending on where they are in their journey. We'll be discussing what you can hypothesize the most material greenhouse gas emission categories to be, depending on which industry a given organization is in. We'll also, of course, discuss the limitations of greenhouse gas accounting because it is not a perfect system, but it's very useful and it's a great starting point. And then last, we'll touch on how baseline emissions are used to then participate in carbon markets, which we'll cover in another week. Then we move on to product sustainability. So first we'll discuss what is the difference between calculating emissions at the enterprise or organizational level versus at the product level, and what are the different insights you can glean from those 2 processes. We'll discuss the main environmental impact categories that you're able to assess when you conduct life cycle analysis. We'll provide examples of how you can change up your product design and how that can then impact the overall footprint. And of course, similar to enterprise emissions, we'll discuss the limitations of life cycle analysis and how it should be used. Then when we move into plan and execute, we'll be breaking down the global sustainability regulatory landscape because it is immense. We'll be talking about the historical timeline to date, as well as what we expect the future trends to be. We'll cover off on the high-level requirements of the top leading standards. We'll break down key components of a typical ESG or sustainability report, including some of the common metrics and KPIs. And we'll also be diving deep into physical and transitional climate risks, as this is a key component of upcoming legislation. Then when we move into week 5, which is invest and reduce, here's where we'll really be diving deep into the carbon markets value chain. We'll be talking about the different components, the key players. We'll also be covering off on the current and future trends of carbon markets and what we see the implications to be. We'll also talk about how to build and design financial and environmental models, which at OnePointFive, we kind of combine the 2 to be able to assess outcomes from both a business standpoint and an environmental standpoint. We'll also discuss the different ways that carbon can be costed out. For example, carbon taxes, internal cost of carbon, and covering marginal abatement curves. And last, we'll get into the principles of investment into decarbonization, what you should consider in order to have both a return on investment and a return on environment. And last but not least, as mentioned, this is Sustainability Consulting 101. We'll walk you through what are the design thinking principles that we use day to day, what are the frameworks that we learned through our many years of consulting that we're actually still using to this date, and we rely on regularly to drive outcomes for our customers. We'll break down the end-to-end process that we use when we set up projects, when we prospect clients, all the way through to execution and closing out, and what are the key things that you should keep in mind. And we'll also talk about the things that we do within our own team to make sure that we complete projects on time and with quality. So that's it for the curriculum, and this is a high-level overview. Of course, we'll be getting into more detail later, but I'm going to pass it off to Matthias to talk about how our program includes applied learning and training up on skills.
Thanks so much, Julia. My name is Matthias Muehlbauer. I'm a founding partner at OnePointFive and super excited to share a little bit about the applied learning that you'll get from this program. So in the last 10 years, we've seen top 10 skills for sustainability management coming out at sustainability management, sustainability as a skill, strategy, and corporate social responsibility as well, rounded out by sustainability consulting. These skills have risen over the last few years, and this is what a lot of people are looking for in finding experiences around education. When we looked at the job descriptions out there at the moment for roles, we found these critical skills of GHG accounting and LCA modeling, ESG certifications and reporting frameworks, carbon calculations, analytical problem solving skills, and key frameworks around SASB, GRI, TCFD, what we call an alphabet soup that is really typical of the climate and sustainability industry. And so what we've done is tie together all these key words that we find in job descriptions and map them to our course. And this is really interesting when we look at the topics of interest from our OPF Academy applicants to date. People are really interested in tying these skills together, but creating a net zero strategy, helping with a decarbonization roadmap, looking at GHG accounting and measurements, building out models, and benchmarking that information as well. So this mapping of interests in consulting and the various sustainability skills required in this field are the key components and building blocks of this course that we built together. Now, I'd love to show you a little bit more about how we put this together. So we have put together an applied learning approach based on 3 different building blocks. One, a curriculum session that goes for 2 hours covering some core concepts tied to Julia's run of show across those 6 weeks. This is taught live by OPF instructors, some of which are in the crowd and some of which are facilitating this session for you today. We'll have a lab session, which will be similar to an office hours, a lot more hands-on, and allow you to interact with the facilitators and work and apply that knowledge. Finally, at the end of the week, we'll have an expert speaker and or panelist. And just to give you a taste of those individuals that we'll be bringing on, we have a list of some logos on the right-hand side. We can see CDP, World Resources Institute, people from South Pole, Accenture, Project Drawdown, New Energy Nexus, and Yale School of the Environment as well. And that wraps up how we're going to be applying this learning. I'm going to pass over to our community experience manager, Denise, to talk a little bit about the OPF Academy community.
Hi, thank you. So to talk a little bit more about the community that we are going to be building as a result of the OPF Academy, at our core, we are bringing together people who are just really passionate about addressing the issue of climate change. And as a group, you all may be coming from different professional backgrounds. You all may be technical environmental professionals. You guys could come from a hard science background, academia, and are hoping to take your skill sets from that arena and kind of transfer them over into really tangible consulting skills. You could be a rising sustainability expert. You could be someone who does come from a consulting background or a great environmental science background and are just hoping to double down and kind of gain more practical skill sets in the sustainable consulting world. Or you could be a climate security professional, someone who's a mid to early career professional who's been wanting to get into the climate space. Maybe you have consulting background or related background, and you're hoping to kind of really focus on sustainability now in the near future. And so these are the type of people we expect to be entering the academy and kind of working with us to build these skills. And so we will be bringing all of you all together in a digital community. We will be taking a vote to see what you all prefer, whether it's Slack or another form of digital platform. But overall, we are going to have this platform so you all can not only kind of share news and events and chat with each other about all the happenings in the climate world, but you guys can also connect with each other. This will be your professional network in the future. Hopefully you guys will be around with each other in the near future. Maybe you all could work together. So we want to bring you all together and bring some great networking opportunities for you all. And then also you guys can discuss and work on curriculum together. Again, these are going to be people you will be having in your professional lives to lean on. So it'll be great to bring you all together in this group as well. And so for our schedule that we will be having while you guys are a part of OPF, we will be running sessions on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I do want to say that all these sessions will be recorded, but the start of the program is going to be on March 20th, so mark your calendars for that date. In terms of sort of importance, we really hope that you all can attend live our curriculum session. That's when all our kind of coursework is going to be taught. Again, it will be recorded, but that's where our bulk of our material will be coming from. On Wednesday, we'll follow up with, like we talked about before, a more interactive session so you guys can get some hands-on skill sets working on the curriculum you've learned. And then on Friday, we'll bring in our expert speakers to come in on a variety of great topics. We expect this to be a 3 to 5 hour commitment weekly. And so, but on top of that, we're including that, we'll also have some kind of ad hoc community engagement events. And we would love to host those kind of more ad hoc as they come around. And we will be taking a poll once we get closer to the session on when the times of the classes will be to kind of help adjust, but we will be running those on an East Coast time schedule. So EST time is when we will be running our sessions at, but exact time is to come. And so for next steps regarding enrollment and admissions, our applications are open. We really encourage you all to apply before February 10th so you all can get our early bird tuition. On top of that, we are going to be offering scholarships to the OPF Academy based on your financial need. There's a place on our application to apply and express the interest in the scholarship. And if you are a current member of the OPF Expert Network, you are getting a different set of pricing incentives. So please check your email to check that out. But please try to apply before February 10th in order to get the early bird discount. And so next steps is to apply. If you've signed up on the wait list, you still need to submit a full application. So please do that if you've been on our wait list. The application takes around 15 minutes to apply. And we are really excited to read and start on our next steps. And on to questions.
Great. So we got through that pretty quickly. But I'm open to any kind of questions. Not sure how many people we have on today's session, but we're open for any Q&A if you want to share it in the chat of the LinkedIn Live event, even if you want. And at this time, I think Jacob can also share the link to this presentation, just in case you're just tuning in right now. We have access to the whole PowerPoint presentation for you to take a look at. And we have a QR code here on the screen for you if you want to hop onto our website and to apply. Any questions? I mean, we can even talk about the Academy. You know that we have a bunch of people that are tuned in live.
We have a question from Caitlin on whether all the material will be recorded. I believe we will aim to record most, if not all, of the sessions as we're able to. We recognize that some people may have things come up or may not be able to attend all of them. Of course, the most optimal experience will be to be there live and engage with the facilitators and your fellow cohort members, but they will be recorded and available, especially if you want to go back and rewatch something, for example.
Yeah, and people always ask about the materials. The materials themselves will be built out, and we generally also have pre-read glossaries and all the sources, each slide by slide. So you would also have a copy of that to be able to look at the content in more depth, even if you're not able to make a session or if you wanted to go deeper in a particular area.
Neil or Matthias, you want to take the question on whether there will be a limited number of applicants that will be accepted?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so go ahead, Matthias.
Yeah, so there is a limited number of applicants. We're targeting about a cohort size of around 70. And so with the interest we've had so far, it's fairly competitive. So we appreciate, a well thought out application. Don't spend hours on it, but we want to have people that are really passionate about the sort of learning goals that we've set out, an interest in sustainability, an interest in climate, and really focus on what can you bring to the community alongside your learning experience as well.
Yeah. And just to correct you on that, Matthias, we are accepting 85 plus or minus. So it depends on the applicants that we do get. We'll obviously be focusing on quality over quantity. We definitely want people who are committed to climate first and foremost, and people who want to invest all this knowledge and information too. So do apply if that sort of fits you. Looks like we also have another questions about, are these standards and models which will be taught applicable to the EU? I'd say definitely yes. I don't know, Julia, if you want to also talk about that. We do have basically our two biggest clients are from the EU and from the US side, followed by Asia.
Yeah, I think primarily, first, we're going to be targeting a global view. So definitely the standards, regulations, frameworks that are applicable at a global level and are the ones that are most commonly used. With that being said, when we do dive deep into the regulations and the standards, we will be primarily focusing on the US, the EU, some of Asia, and this is primarily driven by where that standards are coming from. With regard to the EU, for example, we know that there's upcoming regulation down the pipeline this year. We know there's also SFDR, so we'll definitely be covering off on those.
Yeah. And I just see another question probably earlier by Grace about when the timing was. Denise mentioned, but we'll be polling during the application what times suit people best. Obviously, because we're working internationally, and we've done this when we taught about 450 different students over 2 climate-based cohorts. We had people from all the way from India and from Southeast Asia to the States to South America. So we're very used to that. We obviously can't get the perfect time, but that's also why we record sessions and we try a mix of different times so that most people can make everything as possible and be least disruptive. Amazing. Any other questions? They can also be follow-up questions from the group.
I might throw a question out to Neil and Julia while waiting for some more questions. What kind of content are you excited to put together for this upcoming academy? What sort of areas are you guys excited about?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in first, give Julia some time. I think the thing that I'm really excited by, so just as a storytelling, when I did my Master's of Environmental Management at Yale School of Environment, we had a lot of consultancies come and speak to us. And when they spoke to us, they were trying to recruit us in sustainability consulting. First of all, telling us what they did, like, we do GRI, SASB, sustainability reporting, GHG accounting, and then asking us to apply, but not teaching us the how. And then when we tried to apply, literally the role description had those things you're familiar with. And I looked at the curriculum at the school and said, we don't even teach this stuff at the school. So I think the things that I'm super excited by is how to demystify all this, basically you talked about it, Matthias, the alphabet soup of different standards and things that a lot of, companies do sit behind as a black wall. We want to democratize that and make it simplified and easy to understand, and for you to be able to apply that in your current organization. So I'm most excited about demystifying the GHG accounting space, especially around standards. How do you navigate that from a timeline standpoint? How do you select the right one for the right organization, for the right geography? And so that you can tick that box and say, I am familiar with it and I know actually how to grapple and work with it. And then even more excitingly, to overlay our projects, our case studies in the labs to sort of show you how it happened in person, the before and after, and getting you to sort of tackle the problems that we had and then hearing from the project leads who actually did that project, so that you can have that feedback loop of understanding the limitations and what you need to actually push that forward. As well as also LCA is very limited in where you can learn that work. So hopefully people find that interesting. But I'll pass it on to Julie.
What's LCA, just for the audience?
Yes, life cycle analysis. So the idea of being able to measure the life cycle emissions of a product or a service from its manufacturing, distribution, use, and end of life. It's very limited where you can actually learn that, and the software's available can be very hard to attain and hard to sort of interpret.
Thanks, Neil. Julie, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I definitely echo what Neil was saying, and that I think a lot of the ethos behind why we're doing this is to kind of like break down the barrier of understanding. Like there's this perceived notion, at least I had this notion, as Neil was saying, that all of the things that are typically required in a sustainability consulting job description just initially seem very kind of foreign, hard to attain. The list always seems super long, but then when you actually get down to doing the work, it's not as complex as it seems. And I'm excited to be able to teach others and actually break down what I do day to day. And also just talk about how when you, for example, calculate scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, like what happens next, and walk through case studies of how organizations are actually using this information to make business decisions. That's what I'm excited about.
Got it. And also some people might be wondering, because we have been teaching the climate-based fellowship, which would almost say is a flagship program if you're wanting to learn more about environmental sciences and climate sciences. That's the program that's right for you. This is almost like an additional level deeper track, and I'll let Matthias sort of talk about the specific differences between climate-based fellowship and the OnePointFive Academy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think where we're focusing on is really trying to drive changes within businesses, organizations, tied to projects, where we see a lot of our day-to-day work. We're trying to demystify those skills, tools, approaches, and get really into the detail. So it's really in the implementation part of, I guess, sustainability consulting, and trying to move to action. Climate-based has a great overview of the fundamentals of climate, especially around the sciences. It also gives sort of broad understanding of the different solution sets tied to how do you draw down carbon as per the project drawdown framework.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just pause there. Neil, did you want to
no
with anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say we're teaching climate-based fellowship cohort 3 in the coming months. This is kind of the additional deep dive around business and environment and getting the practical skill sets to do it from an organizational level. So you tied it up correctly. I think they're very complementary to one another, and depending on, as Denise said, your kind of personas of what fits best for you, both of these programs could be, a choice for you. Cool.
Yeah, perfect. We've got another question here from Shayla, and she's asking, have your clients asked for a program like this, or are you launching it from seeing the need, and whether there's any recognition in transitioning as a career in the climate space, and if there's a networking element to this work as well with companies hiring. I think maybe just to start, I can maybe take the first part. So our clients have asked for a lot of upskilling, especially executives in the climate space. And the questions that they have start fairly broad about fundamentals about climate, but then very quickly move into, all right, how do I do this in my everyday? And that's where we have been able to build a bit of a niche. And so I think that's an interesting lens from where we're coming from, where we're using, I guess, real client examples and distilling this demand that we're finding from clients. And that, I think, is kind of reflected in the gap in the market, where this hasn't been done quite yet before. In terms of the networking side, maybe I'll pass it over to Denise, who's covering a little bit of the community experience side, to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, our goal is that you all will be building these skill sets, and then you guys can hopefully lean on each other while you are going through job processes, job applications. Like, we want this to be a community at the end of the day that you feel comfortable reaching out to, and that whatever Slack space, whatever other digital platform we choose will be a really great hub to do that. And it will be a great place to share resources regarding jobs and events and all those things. And I think that's another thing we're really looking forward to. But this community is having a group of people with like a shared goal or like shared end goal in mind as well. So hopefully that helps with the networking bit a bit.
Yeah, and specifically to the job side, we have the speakers and panelists. Like, our customers and partners are your customers and partners. I think of us as that friend that you would want, that can get you that coffee chat kind of thing. Like, this is what we're trying to create in the virtual world. Basically, the people that helped us get where we are, and obviously we're still on our own pathway, but the people who can break open these doors for you. And that's what we're aiming to do. You know, the people and founding members and speakers that we do have also come from institutions that are hiring for sustainability consultants or people with your skill sets. So that's our ideal goal as well. Julia, anything else to add?
No, I think you covered it.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I will say, and this is just a reflection on the current corporate sustainability environment of organizations, you know, if you think about it, climate has moved from a corporate sustainability responsibility to a sustainability climate world. And a lot of the senior leadership, not to say all of it, but, you know, there is a bit of a knowledge gap even in some of the organizations that we have worked with, which is very, you know, notable. And they also are very open about it. They're wanting to learn this information. So it's also important that people working in organizations, you know, learn these things, even if you're not choosing to do consulting, because this skill set itself will allow you to champion climate within your specific organization. And so we do see it as a way of bridging that gap of skill set knowledge of the people who can execute the projects and the organizations and the team members within that, as an alternate to, you know, trying to do a master's program, but it not being as applicable to the sustainability world.
And I might just add that, you know, I think that also applies to people that are engaging with organizations and having to come to grips with corporate sustainability strategies and how they're implemented. Specifically in the activist field, for example, they're a lot of the time working with these organizations trying to drive forward change, and understanding the internal workings of how organizations work also help give color to how do you actually work together with them, by understanding how they're built, what kind of standards and frameworks they're relying on, and what kind of strategies they're building as well. So we see that has a broad application to driving climate action in lots of different contexts.
Amazing.
Should we wrap things up with maybe a final question, if we have anyone else in the chat that wants to share? Otherwise, perhaps we can close the session and eagerly await for your applications. Neil, did you maybe have a final word you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think the main thing I'd sort of say is the OPF Academy is something that I honestly wish I had, even during my time at Yale, or honestly post Yale, to bridge that gap that I needed. You know, at the end of the day, we went through it the really hard way. The fortunate thing was environmental sciences. I had over 5 years of consulting experience, and then went into like climate for a number of years within like climate venture and all these things. This is literally the program that I wish I had. And we are developing this not because we're an education company, right? We're trying to mobilize a movement of people who can act on climate today. So this is more the practitioner's lens of, how do I understand this stuff? What is it? How do I use it? And, you know, let's get on with decarbonization organizations today. So honestly, if you really aren't sure, or you have any questions, like, do shoot us an email. Like, you probably figure out info@opf.degree, but if you put Neil@opf.degree or Matthias@opf.degree, as long as you're not spam bots, like, we're willing to like answer your questions. You can also find us on LinkedIn. You can see that our journey wasn't like we started off as experts. We all had to go through this process, but we are literally running out of time. Like, we need to halve emissions by 2030 and completely eliminate them by 2050. If we don't even understand the basics of how that works within the business route, which drives a lot of emissions, we aren't going to be able to create the change that we want to see in this world. So with that, we're always willing to like take on any questions. We're trying to make this as accessible as possible, and taking all your feedback together. I really hope that we see you part of Cohort 1. If not Cohort 2, we're planning to do this multiple times this year, but to really just open up this playbook that a lot of corporate consulting companies honestly keep in closed doors so that they get paid the fees to do the work. We want to basically relinquish that and democratize and make it so transparent of the secret sauce that it doesn't become secret sauce anymore. It becomes common knowledge, and then we can focus on the harder things to do. So I really hope that this at least resonates with you in some sense as something that you wish you had, because our team's been working really, really hard to put this all together so that it can be super valuable for you. So with that, I just wanted to thank my entire team here. We have Julia at OPF.degree, we have Denise at OPF.degree. Any team members that you feel kind of resonate with yourself, don't hesitate to reach out. So with that, apply before February 10th. We have everything live, and sign up to our newsletter. We'll continue to do that. Follow our LinkedIn, we'll constantly posting posts, and we hopefully will see you in March. So take care, everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you all.